This is a Cebu versus Manila video, but it's not to say that one is better than the other, because at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to priorities, tolerance level for certain things. But I will say this, when I first planned my trip to the Philippines and I looked into it a little bit and I talked to a few people, I didn't even consider Manila because of what I heard about it just being so big and so chaotic. And I heard different things about safety. And as soon as I heard enough of that, I was like, yeah, not for me. And I heard about Cebu City, which I heard was like the more laid back, chill version, right? A place that was closer to the beaches and nature and all of those things were like, that's what I want. That's music to my ears as far as a starting point for a city and potential like long-term home base. So I skipped Manila and I went to Cebu, and I've been to Manila now a few times. I'm back in Manila now. This is probably my 5th time to be up here, but I realized after this particular trip and talking to some guys that have been living here, particularly in like the BGC area, Makati, these bubbles of Manila. And what I've been hearing from them is that it's way better than they thought. A bunch of things that sort of made me think, wait a minute, maybe I should look at Manila differently and spend some time in the area and take it in and see what it might be like and do a little bit of a comparison to Cebu City, a city that I've spent quite a bit of time. And I think you guys will be surprised. I have been quite impressed with what kind of lifestyle that you can achieve here in this area of Manila. So I'm actually in McKinley Hill. So just to start off the bat, there's a lot of different bubbles in Manila. There are more bubbles and they are much bigger bubbles. So BGC is massive. It dwarfs all of the bubbles combined that you would get in Cebu City with IT Park, Cebu Business Park. I guess the easiest way to describe it is it's way bigger and much nicer. And by nicer, I mean the infrastructure, the walkways, the attention to detail, the landscaping, little bits of green space here and there. In IT Park, for example, you don't have to go too far before you start to see some things that are crumbling. The infrastructure is not nearly as nice as BGC. The one sort of green space area of IT Park, which is sort of a central park area, what I notice when I go there is it's not green at all. Now, it's not horrible, and there's definitely nice walkways and atmosphere in IT Park and Cebu Business Park. There's lots of nice stuff. But just to be blunt about it, there is a clear distinction between the two cities when it comes to this stuff. It's a pretty big drop-off. So if these kind of things are important to you and you're not overly adaptable to the more raw side of Cebu City, then this is something that you really should think about. I love that kind of thing. I get out and walk, and I walked all over Cebu. I would walk through, get out of the bubble and walk through the traffic and through the chaos. And, I kind of enjoyed part of that. Of course, it's not my preference. I would much rather it be a nice green space or a nice open sidewalk, but I did it. And it was just, it's part of the charm. It's part of the character of Cebu City. It's definitely more developing, and the bubbles are much smaller. So you're kind of forced to get out of that and into some of the chaotic areas of Cebu. So Manila, BGC, Makati, massive sprawling area where you can get out and walk, and you can enjoy nicely paved, wide walkways for miles and miles and stay within that bubble. And you can also get out and bike. You can bike around BGC. There's electric bike rentals. There's the little electric scooters that you can rent. That would never happen in Cebu. There's nowhere to go. If you like that kind of thing, you can do that particularly in BGC. It's set up for that. When it comes to traffic, guys, I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty brutal in both Cebu and Manila. However, there's a really big distinction between the two. You don't have to travel out of the bubble and into the more chaotic parts of Manila to access things like the LTO, immigration, every type of clinic you can think of, every type of shopping you can think of, and one of the top hospitals in all of Manila. It's right in the heart of BGC. If you're living in one of the bubbles of Cebu City, guys, they just don't have everything there. You're forced to get out and deal with the traffic more. If you need to go to a hospital, there's no hospital in either bubble. The top hospitals in Cebu, especially if there's traffic at that time of day, good luck getting there quickly. You have to travel out to get to these things, forcing you to deal with the traffic more often. Comparing BGC and Makati, BGC is definitely more of a true bubble. It's definitely more of La La Land. Everything is so perfect and so nice. Some people would describe it as a bit soulless because of that. It just doesn't have that character. Makati feels like more of a normal city. It's a little bit more balanced. It's got the really high end, and it's got some areas that are a little bit more rough. There's kind of like a little red light district-y area in Makati, but the overall feel of Makati is it's quite nice. You have the Greenbelt area of Makati. You have an area called Ayala Triangle, which is kind of a large park with some pathways. I was there the other day going for a jog. And then there's like a row of cafes and restaurants where you can kind of kick back and look out at the green space. So living in this area of Manila versus Cebu City, you just have so much more to choose from when it comes to getting out for walking, way more restaurants, way more cafes. Not that Cebu doesn't have all that, but again, side-by-side comparison, it's just way more here. And if you're into any specific diet or if you're really into healthy eating, you have so much of that in this area of Manila, where not necessarily in Cebu. Of course, you have options like that, but it's not even close. So here's a really big thing that I noticed that's very different in Manila compared to Cebu. Particularly these areas that I'm talking about really represents the Philippines in a more international, normal kind of a city, where Cebu might be, you'll see a lot of more retired guys dating, they're kicking back, they're planning their trips, maybe they're on vacation, more laid back and more focused on this sort of expat movement of coming to the Philippines for these things. In Manila, it's a little bit more normal life. It's people that are working still. So there's a lot of foreigners that live here that work in Manila, that work for maybe an international company with a headquarter or an office here in Manila. You have a lot of digital nomads here. A lot of things happening here. You see a lot of couples that they're just foreigner couples where they've moved from Europe and they're living here now and they brought their kids. It's more like just what you would see in any city around the world, where you don't see that as often. In fact, if you see like a female white foreigner in Cebu or in Dumaguete, you're kind of like, what are you doing here? It's normally older foreigner guys and they're here to meet Filipinas. Like that is the main type of person that you'll normally see as far as expats. Where in Manila, you just see what you would normally see in any city more often than these other areas of the Philippines. So when it comes to making friends, when it comes to networking, or if you go to some of these meetups that are happening, and there's a lot of that happening in Manila, a lot of networking, a lot of interacting with different people, it's more of a variety. It's more of a wider range of age. It's more of a wider range of where these people are from. I was at a meetup recently, and yeah, there was guys in their 30s, there was a guy in his 80s, and everything in between. Some of them working, some of them retired, some Filipinos, more Filipinos coming to these meetups, and people from Europe and different countries. And so I thought that was awesome. I thought that was something that stood out to me as being an advantage. Also, the collective mindset. So this could apply to maybe a lot of you guys and not just younger guys. So because there's more of a working mindset here, there's more of a mindset of like personal growth and learning and collaborating. There's podcast studios, there's business startup meetups, but also things like art and philosophy and wellness, tons of different social meetups. The list goes on. Point is, there's a big distinction between the two in terms of volume and diversity of things that you can do to get connected in the city. It's not just younger guys. So there's a lot of retired guys, and I met a few of them at this meetup that go to a lot of these types of events because they want to stay involved with that, because they want to connect with people that are always doing different things. For them, it's a better lifestyle to be involved with. So that's more of a to each their own. But it really stood out to me, the emphasis on networking in a different way in Manila that I think will be just a great fit for a lot of you guys. Some things though that definitely the edge goes to Cebu would be proximity to nature. And I think that was, without a doubt, that was a draw for me to go there in the first place. And also to, have my ADV in Cebu and planning trips from Cebu where I can hop on the bike and take it onto a ro-ro ferry and head over to Bohol or head over to Leyte or ride down the coast, ride to Malboal, Oslab, can ride the scooter over to Dumaguete and explore Negros. Of course, you have the ferry that you can hop over to Bohol, Siquijor. Everything is in close proximity when it comes to little nature getaways. However, after you've kind of done that a few times, eventually you're going to want to try different things, and that at that point you're hopping on a plane. That's where Manila makes sense in terms of traveling out with the international airport and exploring the region, which is definitely something that I want to do more of. So if that sounds appealing to you, where you want to have quick access to the airport for international flights to Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Japan, different areas that you want to maybe visit during your time living in the Philippines. Of course, Manila has the edge. There's more options. Not that you can't get some good flights out of Cebu. And the airport itself, the Cebu airport, is better than the Manila airport, but you just have way more flight options out of Manila. I think that there are plenty of guys that are going to prefer Cebu over Manila, and I think there's also plenty of you that will prefer Manila over Cebu. And it depends on what your priorities are, depends on what your tolerance is. Now, a place like Cebu, the complaint that I often get from guys that go there and that are disappointed is because they get bored. The bubbles are very small. They end up doing the same thing over and over again. And then outside of the bubbles, it's too dirty, too raw, too much of a developing city. And then there's other guys that say they like that. They're okay with that. It's more like the real Philippines. But there are guys that do that for a little while and eventually say, you know what? I kind of just want the comfort. I just don't want to deal with that anymore. And a place like BGC, it just checks the box for those comforts and what they're familiar with, what they're used to. And even if they love all that raw side of the Philippines, you travel out to get all that. But then when you're home and you're just doing your day-to-day, there's a lot of guys that just prefer to not mess with that and to have this massive area of niceness where they can get out and explore without getting stuck in that kind of rough, messy part of the city. Before I end the video, guys, I want to compare the two things that stand out the most for most guys as far as a big purpose for them to come to the Philippines in the first place. And that is the cost of living and dating and relationship opportunities. When it comes to cost of living, guys, I'm not going to lie. I definitely anticipated it being more expensive to live in BGC compared to one of the bubbles of Cebu City. I was surprised to find out that the cost per square meter for condos in both cities, same price. And that's a big part of your budget right off the bat. But that does come with a catch. From what I'm understanding, the majority of condos in BGC are at least one bedroom. I don't think there's a ton of studio options in BGC, definitely not compared to Cebu City, where a lot of your options are going to be little tiny studio apartments, which obviously brings the price way down. Now, where you can end up spending more per month living in BGC is that there are more, let's say, premium, nicer, trendy, all of those kind of places, the restaurants, the cafes, the malls, the shopping, a lot of it is on the higher end, nicer places all at your fingertips. However, the nice premium options around Cebu City, which they certainly have as well, not as many, but they are also premium menu prices. So if you're going to those places all the time in Cebu, it's the same thing. So of course, the key to managing your budget in either city is go to the grocery store more often, cook at home, finding the places you like to go and eat at and hang out at that don't have that higher price tag. And there are options like that around BGC. There's just not as many in comparison to all the nicer spots. As for dating, guys, there's definitely overlap between the two cities. There are big dating pools, and you can meet a great Filipina anywhere in the Philippines at the end of the day if you know what you're looking for, timing is right, and you have your head on straight. But to compare the two cities, I would have to say what stands out to me the most about Manila is that Manila is just a way, way bigger dating pool, and the ratio between foreigners that are here and the available amount of single Filipinas in Manila, it's just night and day compared to Cebu. One thing that I found in Cebu is there seems to be just this high concentration of Filipinas that are looking for foreigners, that have dated other foreigners, and then there's just this mixed bag of who's genuine and who's not. There's so many more foreigners there too that are more focused on dating, that are there on a short-term vacation. There's just this dating culture on steroids in Cebu, it seems like, where Manila has that too, but it's more spread out. And I think with the points that I made about how the city is different than Cebu, I think that kind of tells a bit of the story of the dating culture here as well. You can look at it this way too. Manila is just so massive. All of those Filipinas that are out there working in the outskirts of Manila, where they just never had an opportunity to meet and date foreigners. And I think that's an important thing for a lot of guys, that it's a Filipina that's their focus is their job, their career, helping their family, and they're not caught up in that dating culture on steroids where a lot of Filipinas slip into it. They meet other Filipinas that are dating foreigners and getting allowances and having fun, and and all of that. There's a lot of that in Cebu. Not to say that you can't find a great Filipino in Cebu as well, but trying to paint the picture and distinguish the two, and why I think Manila, depending on what you're looking for, might just have the edge over Cebu City. I want to make this point too. My buddy only focused on Manila because he was very particular of what he was looking for. He did want a Filipina that was more established in her career, more focused on that, someone that had a little bit more experience in life, more exposure to different traveling, and even for banter, like a Filipina that understands a little bit of his banter where they can connect and be compatible with conversation and sense of humor and all of those things. That was important to him. He didn't want to feel like he was matching with Filipinos that just wanted him for his money. And he was meeting a lot of Filipinas here in Manila that were more financially independent, but still had some of those traits of Filipinas that a lot of guys are looking for. A little bit more traditional, conservative, sweet, caring, all of those traits, but also a little bit more established just for that compatibility factor. And so he met someone that's fantastic, and he's been with her for a year and a half. And I think Manila definitely has the edge if you're looking for that type of Filipina. That's what I'm going to point out for this video, guys. There's a lot more to it than that, but this is my take on it, so take it for what it is. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I'm going to leave it at that. Appreciate it. More videos to come on Manila as I'm going to be here for a little bit longer. And of course, more adventures to come down the road as well. So stay tuned for that. Appreciate it. See you soon. Bye.